are now watching the Amazing Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and, of course, on X. Hopefully, everybody is calming down a little bit, taking a deep breath, and doing whatever they need to do to get ready for an elimination game, Game 3 in Milwaukee with the savior, hopefully, Jose Quintana for the Mets against Tobias Myers for the Brewers. And listen, do or die, guys. Everybody is on the table. Hopefully, Mets got to do what they got to do to win this ball game and head to Philadelphia for the NLDS. Chris, how are you feeling, buddy?
I don't know how I'm feeling, Rob. I'm feeling the whole range of emotions. I did a little bit of like a 30-minute live at 1 o'clock. I called it the pregame, gave some insight. I was trying to check up on how everybody else is feeling about midday. Gave an opportunity for people to talk some Mets baseball earlier in the day before we went on the pregame. I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll stand by that fact. And I said that on the 1 o'clock stream, but you know, I can't lie. There's just something about, last night and the loss that's kind of stuck with me, and I'm trying to get rid of it. And I think it's going to persist until first pitch. But again, the words change the narrative. You got to believe this is the New York Mets we're talking about here, the 2024 New York Mets. They've shown that they've been a resilient bunch, but the life of a Mets fan, everybody knows, right? You could be cautiously optimistic, right? You could be overly optimistic, but there's something in the back of your head that is just like, oh boy, what's going to go wrong? And I hope that isn't the case tonight. But again, listen, Mets, we got a game to play. We got 27 outs to get. As I mentioned on the post game yesterday, 27 outs. We're not talking 21 outs. We're not talking 24 outs. We're talking 27 outs. Play a complete game. Hopefully Quintana is able to keep the ball game close, and this offense absolutely has to deliver. So we'll get into it here in just a second.
Yeah, if they don't, you know what? They'll be spending the rest of the winter, answering those questions of what happened and the lack of offense in Game 2. And, the questionable decisions by the manager when it came to Maton and why taking out Manaya just for 5 innings. It's going to be a lot of that. And look, obviously, cautious optimism is basically how the Mets fans live throughout the season, the playoffs, whenever it might be. So that's just the way we live as a Mets fan. But you're right. It's a lot to, because you see Mendoza, we talked about it in the post game. He needed to mix up the lineup a little bit, and he definitely mixed up the lineup a little bit. And I'm fine with that. Like, it didn't work yesterday, and I'm shocked that Alonso was batting fourth today. Annoys me a little bit, probably more than a little bit, but we'll get into that obviously. But listen, somebody's got to step up, right? We always focus on certain people, and it's worthy of continuing to talk about other people, but this might be his last game as a New York Met, and we'll definitely get into him and the lineup. But the pitching matchup, right? We know who has the pitching advantage here. It's obviously the Brewers with Tobias Myers, but does it really matter? Because yesterday we had the pitching matchup. To be quite honest with you, I think we had the pitching matchup in the first 2 games. To be quite honest with you, and I think we should have won yesterday, and that's the most frustrating thing. I think that's why a lot of people are very disappointed on what happened yesterday and how it went down, regardless of who you wanted in the ballgame at that point. They just had to get the job done, and it didn't happen. But I did a poll on my community page about saying, hey, Mets fans, how are you feeling about tonight? Confident or not confident? There was over 100 votes. Confidence was at 70%. Which is, I was a little more shocked. I was thought it would be more.
That shocks me a lot. Yeah.
So this just shows you that people still believe in this team because, again, adversity has hit this team once again, and they've proven that they bounce back. Now, there is no room for error this time. There isn't a second game like in Atlanta to fall back on. This is if you don't play well, you will lose. Now, you can play well and still lose, which I don't know if people will accept, but I think that it would be a blow, but they would still talk about game 2 and say, see, if we would have won game 2, we just because we play well in game 3 doesn't mean you're always going to win. It's baseball. We've all been there before, seeing a good game and still losing. So Met fans are still confident, at least in my poll, and even on X, people seem to be okay with it. Pretty confident. I'm not saying overly confident like we were yesterday. A lot of people were very confident yesterday in the Mets winning yesterday, and I don't know if it was Mania, I don't know if the way they played in game 1, but it was a combination of all of that, and we lost with having the pitching matchup. It was just bigger hits and clutcher hits by the Milwaukee Brewers. So what this pitching matchup, we know what Quintana is. He's not going to blow you away. He doesn't have the stuff like Tobias Myers. They have the advantage pitching wise. What is the key for Jose Quintana to at least try to go toe to toe with Tobias Myers to put up zeros in game 3?
It's a loaded question. That's a very loaded question. Establish a changeup. Establish a changeup is what I'll say. He did a good job. I was looking at Quintana's pitch mix against the Brewers the last time out. He only fared 4 1/3 innings pitched. We know the Mets lost that game 6-0. Jose Quintana did well over his first 3 innings, maybe even 4 innings. No, the first really 3 innings, 3.5, whatever. But he kind of unraveled at that point. Couple singles here, couple walks there, and obviously he exits the ball game after 4 1/3 inning. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take, to be honest with you, because with my analysis from the post game yesterday, the reason why I didn't want to see Maton in there is it's like, the guy throws 92 miles per hour, and so does Jose Quintana, and I never feel at ease when I have a guy in the mound that's throwing that soft, and you have to continuously rely on elite location. Listen, the bottom line is in this league, right? Obviously, hitters can hit velocity, but pitchers need velocity in case they make mistakes. If you if you throw 91, 92, your location, your command has to be on point, and that's why Quintana's had an up and down season. Now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because over his last 6 starts, right, regardless of how many innings he's pitched in each of those starts, he's looked good. He's looked solid, and he's looked competent, right? He really has. But you look at the season in a nutshell for Jose Quintana, the reason why it's been so up and down is because he doesn't have that, blow you away stuff. He doesn't have that electric fastball that he can just rely on and put hitters away if he needs to. He doesn't. And he really needs to rely on his changeup. And again, the sinker up in the zone. It's not a shock. It should not be a shock because I've said it a million times already. Anybody that's on the mound for the New York Mets is going to attack the opposing lineup high in the zone. They are going to do it. Now, can he locate that pitch for a strike or a borderline strike instead of balls? Because I think the Brewers are starting to catch on to what the Mets are doing, and they're starting to become a little bit more patient with those pitches. So again, like you said, and I think the Brewers have had the pitching matchup right in game 1 as opposed to the Mets in game 2. In my estimation, obviously this goes right back to the Brewers. You saw what the Mets lineup did against Tobias Myers the last time around when he appeared for them. As a reliever out of the bullpen for 4 innings, scoreless, 1 hit surrendered, 5 strikeouts. The Mets couldn't touch him. Hopefully they make the adjustments and the necessary adjustments today. But for Jose Quintana, again, the changeup is his bread and butter. Obviously he's going to mix in the curveball as well. But really, like we've been saying over these good Jose Quintana starts, first of all, you don't know what you're going to get from him consistently, right? You don't know what version you're going to get of him. And 2, if he is throwing that changeup early and often and it's good, it's inducing a lot of swings and misses, then you feel pretty confident as the game moves along. But the final thing about this pitching matchup that I'll say, because I've said my piece already on Tobias Myers, I think D said it in the chat here, the slider for him is wicked. So is this changeup. He throws the slider a lot more than the changeup, around 21%. So again, hitters in this lineup that struggle perpetually with the slider, Pete Alonso, cough, like they're going to have to expect it today and lay off of it too, because presumably they're not going to throw for a strike, especially if they're up in the count. They're not going to try to make a mistake there. But Jose Quintana is going to have a short leash today, if I had to guess. Carlos Mendoza knows that he has options, right? David Peterson is definitely going to be available out of the pen today. Jose Buto, right, is definitely going to be in this game at some point as well, regardless of what and you hope you can just maintain a lead or keep the game close until Edwin Diaz gets into the ball game. I think it was a prime opportunity that was missed, in which, that's why I kind of look back on it still. Last night's last night, and I'm going to stop talking about it after this point, but it's like, you say you have Edwin Diaz for a couple batters. That was the best time to put him in there, especially when the Mets had 2 outs in the 8th inning. But again, bygones are bygones. Edwin Diaz got the 2 full days rest now, and he's ready to go. You know what? He should be able to go 6 outs, really, if you need him. I think that if you go up to Edwin Diaz and ask him for a 6-out save, he'll say, yes, give me the ball, I'll do it, right? He's a bulldog, and he wants to be out there. So we can't make excuses of why XYZ guy can't go out there on the mound. If Carlos Mendoza is entrusting you to go out there and do the job, and you're healthy enough to do it, right, go out there and do it. So keep the ball game close and just hope this offense does the rest. It was a tale of 2 tapes, the offense, game 1 to game 2. And let's just see that, hope that we see more solid approaches. Again, I'm keeping my expectations low. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm not going to give you all, this sort of feel good, we're definitely going to win and stuff like that. Like, we're going to wait and see what this team does. Do I believe in them? Yes, I do have belief in them. But again, cautious optimism is the way that I operate, especially at this point of the season. And we'll talk about, about on the post game in terms of if it's a win or a loss, doesn't really matter. I do think, and I know you're going to disagree with this because we've talked about this already, and as Oliver's saying in the chat as well, I definitely do agree that the Mets are playing with house money. I don't think a lot of people, expected the Mets to be here. So if you want to say that in terms of why the pressure shouldn't be on for the New York Mets because they shouldn't have been here regardless, that's fine. But again, when you're this close to an NLDS appearance against a team you've never seen that happens to be your in-division rivals, it's so close you can taste it. Yeah, you want to get there. And it honestly will seem as a failure if you don't get there. So I get both sides of the fence. I'm hoping for a competent, all-around, complete game. And emphasis, keywords, emphasis on complete.
Yeah. In post-game 1 that we did, we talked about a complete team win in game 1. Yesterday in the post game, I said a complete team loss. It was a team effort loss. And it was the scale of both worlds in both games. Came through with the big hits in game 1, did not in game 3, and it led to keeping the Brewers around in the game when you didn't add insurance runs. And there's your issue right there when the Brewers only needed a couple of hits and a couple of blasts, and they were either back in the game, tie game, and then they eventually took the lead. With Quintana, like you were talking about, Chris, he's got to have pinpoint control. If he doesn't have pinpoint control, he's going to struggle. This is not a huge strikeout team. They like to put the bat on the ball. And Quintana, if he's not on and I'm not saying, getting 8-9 strikeouts in 5 innings, something like that. We all like that. But you see what happens when he strikes out a lot of guys, his pitch count goes up because he will get into those higher pitch counts when it comes to, 2-2 counts, 3-2 counts. He will get into those counts because he'll be missing by a little bit because he's trying to strike guys out or he's trying to pitch to contact. But when you're just a little off and you not have that pinpoint control and not hitting that, using his fastball on the corners and up in the zone, it's not going to set up his breaking ball and his off-speed pitches, and that's when he's getting into trouble because they can be looking for certain pitches. And I think he has to pitch to contact, to be quite honest with you. He's not a strikeout guy. When he's on, he's pitching to contact, and his strikeouts are down, and his pitch count is down. I think that's when he's at his best. Listen, the Mets defense has been really good, and that has been something to talk about in this series, but the Brewers also have been good as well. But the main thing here, and I think, and it was obvious, it was more glaring yesterday, and people started talking about it. The Mets have 15 hits in this series. 14 of them are singles, 1 double, 1 extra base hit. When you don't hit home runs, and the Mets have been a much better home run hitting team, it's very, very hard to string 3, 4, 5 hits together with against any team. You can't consistently do that and get wins, especially in the playoffs. That's why the Alonso situation is more of a problem than I think the national media, especially ESPN, who is obviously covering this game, is talking about enough, because we've brought it up. The fans have brought it up. We said it before a month ago. This team can't just go into a playoff spot or a big game without Pete Alonso hitting the ball over the wall. Yes, other guys have been doing it better this year than we had in the past, and they've been a better home run hitting team. But if Alonso's not doing it in the middle of the order, it kills the middle of the order, because even when he was struggling, when he had his struggles in years past, he was still knocking balls over the wall with mistakes. Now that he's not hitting the ball over the wall either, is killing this team, because he's the one guy that you would say, all right, even when he's struggling, I'm going to get this ball over the wall. You make it a couple of runs here. And that's the issue, because now we put more pressure on Vientos to hit the ball over the wall. Even though Vientos hasn't hit the home run in this series, he's been hitting the ball hard and got a couple of hits in this series, right? And now if Alonso don't do it, okay, who we're looking for to do it, right? If you look at this lineup, the people who are in there, who's hitting a home run right now, right? You got Winker, who, could be a power guy, but he has, he got the hit, in game 1, a big triple, but that's it, right? Is he a power hitter? Not, I guess. Marte is more of a gap-to-gap guy. Taylor is a gap-to-gap guy. Alvarez is a power guy, but he's been a singles guy, at least in his series. Iglesias is obviously a gap-to-gap guy. He's basically a singles hitter. So it's Lindor and Vientos, nimble with occasional power, but this is the issue. It's Alonso needing to provide that power in this lineup, because look at the difference it can make if you're hitting the ball over the wall. We would be talking about the Phillies today, not game 3 against the Brewers.
Two things is that I think you can win games by stringing hits, but you have to have the 2-out production, right? You have to have the 2-out hits mixed in there, right? And that was the difference between game 1 of the New York Mets, where they scored 8 runs, versus game 2, where they got off to a good start, but they only scored 3 runs for the entire game, is that they got the 2-out timely hits in game 1 from Vientos, Martinez, etc., that they didn't get from guys like Iglesias, Pete Alonso yesterday as well. 2 for 11, a handful of those opportunities came with 2 outs. Again, it's hard to win a baseball game like that, like you said, without hitting doubles or home runs, right, for immediate production. It can be done. It can be done. We've seen the Mets do it, and we've seen other teams do it to the New York Mets, but it takes 2-out production, and that was the difference last night from game 1. Regarding Pete Alonso, again, like, we can say this until we're blue in the face. This might be his last game as a New York Met if the Mets go down tonight. Like, this might be his last game. So we're going to have a whole plethora of talking points about Pete Alonso. I was actually shocked to see how many tweets I saw about Pete Alonso going into today. And there's a lot of people still defending what he's done this season, being a middle of the lineup guy, which is absolutely absurd to me. But the problem is, and I encourage everybody to watch Pete Alonso tonight, not on the slider. We all know what he's going to do on the slider, right? If he swings at it, he's going to miss. If he takes it, it's probably a ball. We know that. That's a given. He's hitting 160 on the slider. Watch what he does, especially early in the count on fastballs. Alonso of previous years has made pitchers pay with fastballs over the middle of the plate. Doesn't matter where they're at, inside, over the middle, or on the outer third of the plate, because he can either go opposite field for a home run, or he can just pull that outside pitch for a home run. He's that strong. Pete Alonso, for the better half of this whole season, pretty much, and especially the last couple of months, he does not take advantage of the fastballs that he gets. He'll swing and miss at it. He'll beat it into the ground, or he'll pull off of it for a foul ball just to the left of a third base bag. That's what I notice about Pete Alonso, is that, yes, he's going to continuously struggle against sliders, but it's not like he hasn't gotten any fastballs in these at-bats. He's still seeing fastballs. He's not taking advantage of it. And I think it's honestly a byproduct of him trying to guess up there, like, okay, this is going to be a slider. Holy shit, it's not. It's a fastball, and I'm late. And I think that's really what it is, because it's hard to think slow and then adjust fast. Rob, you know this, right? Playing baseball, what do they always teach you? At least I was taught, set on the fastball, adjust anything slow, right?
Absolutely.
That's what they teach you. So if you're trying to do a little bit of reverse to overcompensate how bad you are on a certain pitch that's slow, it's not going to be good news for you when you get that fast pitch. So again, right? I mean, at this point, get on base. I said it in my live stream, earlier. Game 1, Pete Alonso, I'm perfectly fine with. I don't even care if you're not hitting doubles or home runs anymore for us. I don't care, right? If you do it, that's a cherry on top. I'm not expecting it, but we'll applaud you if you do. Get on base. Pass the baton to the next guy. That's what he did with 3 walks in game 1. Just get on base. Such a cliche thing to say as well, but we're at that point with Pete Alonso at this point. But, the guys around him at this point, unfortunately, as unfair as it is to them, who have already stepped up, in the absence of Pete Alonso the whole season, in the absence of Brandon Nimmo for the better part of the majority of this season, right? The top of the lineup, Lindor, Vientos, Iglesias, the bottom of the lineup, Marte, Taylor, whoever else, right? It's unfair to them, but they're going to have to step up today as well. One guy that I mentioned in the postgame yesterday, probably one of the most positive guys this series so far, and he's caught a lot of flack because he's been injured a lot and just hasn't been available, Starling Marte. Starling Marte has been an absolute gem for this team this series. So we'll see what happens. I really think in order to mitigate that, though, right, if you don't want to rely on the singles, right, if you don't want to rely on the small ball, if you're preaching that this team needs to hit doubles and home runs, I feel you. But I don't think it's going to change with the snap of a finger tonight, right? I don't think it's going to change. So the way to mitigate that is when you do get on base, you're going to have to swipe some bags, and you're going to have to play aggressive in that nature. We saw Starling Marte yesterday steal a bag, and we've seen the Mets try to incorporate that into their game. But again, to take themselves out of a double play ball, they're going to have to try swipe bags in order for them to sort of manufacture runs via the single. You're going to have to turn a single into a virtual double by hitting the single and then moving up by stealing a base, right? That's how it's going to have to go, and that's how you mitigate that. So again, whether it's the long ball or whether it's small ball, the New York Mets have to go out there and get it done, because if not, your season ends today. That's pretty much what it is. And I agree with a large majority of people in the chat. Like, we've been having this Pete Alonso discussion for many, many months at this point. I still don't understand how someone can tell me that he's going to snap out of it and he's being today, right? That's not even being cautiously optimistic. That's just selling me a pipe dream. But, everybody else has to step up. They have for the majority of the season, which is why the Mets are in this position, not because of Pete Alonso, not really because of Brandon Nimmo, because of the rest of the guys in this team that have stepped up. And in order for the Mets to continue their season and go meet Philadelphia for an NLDS matchup, those guys are going to step in. And I simply cannot rely on Pete Alonso and him magically turning it around.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that's the biggest issue, right? In game 1, you seen that he was taking his walks. He was taking pitches. He was just being something that he was basically not trying to do the entire season, right? He was trying to do way too much, right? Obviously, the contract is on his mind. He knows home runs, provides the paycheck. And we know that the way baseball is now, the big home run guys get the big money day, and that's what he was looking for. And now he's so far in the rabbit hole because of that. He can't get out of his own way. And you're 100% right. Everybody who's played baseball knows you look fastball and adjust to breaking ball or off-speed pitches. That has how you learn to hit. Nobody, obviously, there's better hitters than others, obviously. But you always adjust to the breaking ball and the off-speed. Alonso is looking for breaking ball, looking for off-speed. That's why his numbers against breaking balls are better than the fastball this year in a huge margin. It's not even close, because he's looking for breaking ball and so scared of the slider that the fastballs are beating him. And even 94, 95 miles an hour fastballs are rolling past him. And that's the issue. And again, I'm done trying to expect him to have a big game. I think we all are, right? I have no comment. I mean, you can go to the fridge and get a drink when Pete Alonso's at the plate. That's how sad it has become. But you know what? I'll take walks at this point. because I trust other guys in the lineup to get it done other than Pete Alonso. Like, look at this. You're talking about protection. You had a guy that had a 20-game hitter streak during the season, batting fifth behind him. There ain't no better protection. You'd rather face Alonso than Iglesias because he's a pest. He gets on base. He'll get that big hit. So, it's so frustrating. But you know what? It's got to be a team effort. This team is not winning if this team does not play well together. And we've seen how good it was in game one. They did everything right in game one. Game two, they did a lot of things wrong, specifically hitting, right? They didn't move runners over. They didn't get enough sac flies. They got one. That was the Lindor sac fly. They got to be more productive. Fundamentals. In game one, they were fundamentally sound offense and defensively. Yesterday, particularly the offense, fundamentals just went out the window. Bad strikeouts with runners on, swinging at first pitches when you have the bullpen guy on the ropes on the mound. You're not going to win that way. And that is the biggest issue that came out of yesterday, right? It should have never led to the decision of Maton in the eighth inning. Regardless of who would have came in, it should have never been a 3-2 game going into that eighth. It shouldn't have been. We should have had a couple more insurance runs. And that's why, and we were in the group chat, we were getting concerned because it's just how it was feeling throughout the game. You keep a team like that around, especially in the playoffs with the home field advantage, guess what? There's a pretty good chance they're going to come back. And sure enough, Chourio with the big tie-in home run, and then Mitchell with the two-run home run to give them a 2-run lead, and it was ball game. So if they don't play fundamentally sound baseball, this team is in trouble in the elimination game. And remember, guys, they're also on elimination mode, right? Now, I talked about them being a problem in the playoff, that they've consistently lost. And I don't know if anybody saw the stat yesterday, and I brought it up in the post game. ESPN in the 7th inning put up a stat: 20 playoff games for the Milwaukee Brewers. They've never won trailing after the 7th inning. And they slayed that dragon. And I talked about changing the narrative for the Mets, and they did that against the Braves in that game one, in that doubleheader. And they took that momentum in the game one in the series. The Brewers usually lose those games, and they slayed that dragon. They squashed that stat. Now, both narrative has changed for the Mets and the Brewers. Who is going to prevail, changing the narrative of the Mets blowing basically this series, to be quite honest with you, or the Brewers finally prevailing and winning a series and advancing? That's going to be the key right now. Who is going to step up? Because both teams finally slayed that dragon. Both coaches basically lost the game for individual team. Murphy did it in game one. Mendoza was outmanaged in game two. Who is going to step up today? Who's going to be the better coach? And who's going to be the players or player that is going to step up in game three to eliminate the other team? That is going to be the key to all of this.
Yeah, you got to step up big when it matters. It's actually kind of funny, too, because I think the common theme of this entire series is that the Mets release a lineup, right, out on X or whatever on social media, and then the Brewers don't do it for like another hour and a half. So we're like wondering who the hell is playing tonight for the Brewers. Amizi saying in the chat, Gary Sanchez is behind the plate for the Brewers.
You know,
I'm just going to point that out. I don't know. That's not really, I don't think I would do that if I was Pat Murphy, because we all know the struggles that he has. He's got a great arm, but just like the blocking of it all, etc. Bold move, but maybe it pays off for them. Pat Murphy, as a manager, has been taking a lot of risks. And by the way, he also changed up his lineup again. This is the third different position in the batting order, right spot in the batting order that Bryce Terang has batted in tonight in 3 separate games. First game, it was leadoff. Yesterday was in the 9-hole to get Chourio and him back to back, or him and then Chourio. And then today he's in a 2-hole. So it's going to be Chourio leading off and him in the 2-hole. So really interesting stuff from Pat Murphy. I don't know. It's just curious.
Yeah, and I think it is, because when you seen the Mets against the wall in the Braves series, and they started to steal some bases. They started to be a lot more aggressive, and that was good to see, especially in game one of the series as well. They were aggressive. I think he's trying to control the run game. I think Pat Murphy thinks the Mets are going to be very aggressive when they get on the base hits. If you look at it, he kind of took away a little bit of power in Mendoza in this lineup and put a little bit more speed. If you really look at it, obviously Nimmo, Iglesias, Winker got some speed, Marte got some speed, Taylor. It's more guys that, a little bit more athletic on the base paths. And I do wonder if Mendoza's thinking, because we haven't hit a home run in this series and the power has been slacking in this series, maybe they're going to try to win with some speed, some stolen bases, maybe bunting runners over. If you get into the bottom of the order, when it comes to Marte well, not technically Marte, but yesterday, a lot of people talked about why Taylor didn't bunt with first and second, nobody out. That was his decision. And I wonder if Mendoza is thinking about that process as well with the lack of home runs, trying to, get runs and establish runs with the running game. And I think the problem with Murphy was like, I need a guy that can throw out runners. And we know how bad Sanchez is behind the plate. So that's going to be very interesting. But you know what? The runner, if you get on base, you got to be ready for that ball in the dirt because Sanchez is very bad behind the plate. I mean, he is what Alvarez is right now when it comes to not blocking balls very well, even though he's been a little bit better in the playoffs than he was during the season. Sanchez could be key here. And this can be a situation where we talked about Mendoza overmanaging, Murphy overmanaged in game one. It looks like Murphy is trying to overmanage. I would have been I would have kept the same lineup, to be quite honest with you, if I'm Murphy. The way they played yesterday, and it was another lefty. So I'm a little surprised by that. But again, both of these managers has had great years for their teams. So to question them now, it's like, damn, you don't want to question them and you don't want to get on them because they've been so good this year. But I mean, it's do or die for both of these managers here in this series. So it's going to be so much. It's nervousness and fun at the same time, because if you win, it's celebration mode and that manager looks like a genius. But if you lose, there's going to be a lot of question marks for either manager here. And yeah, I mean, I was going to bring up the Sanchez thing because I wanted to look at the lineup because obviously that's important. Sanchez in there is very interesting to me, but Murphy knows his guys better than we do. So we'll see how it goes. But the cautious optimism is there for us. The lineup's got to step up. Quintana's got to step up, or we're just going to be going home and it's going to suck. And, this team has bounced back every single time when they had adversity. When it's back against the wall, they stepped up. Can they do it again? We'll see.
I see Scott's in the chat trolling about the Mets payroll. It seems like Scott's favorite team should probably step their money up if I had to say something about that. But anyways, you see me squirming around here like I'm doing all this crap. Like, dude, I'm nervous, man. Like, what can I tell you guys? I'm nervous. This is a game where, I haven't, witnessed meaningful Mets, playoff baseball since 2022. We went the whole 2023 season, trying to fight through these streams and explaining why this team's so bad and how, when Stearns took over, it could, be on the up and up, and they might make the playoffs, they might not in 2024, but the direction of this organization it's going in is great. But we're here now, right? We are here now. And to your credit, talking about Gary Sanchez, again, I just looked up what the stats are for him, in the catching position, throwing runners out since 2022. I know he's bounced around the league a little bit since 2022, so I wanted to give him a fair sample size. He's number 17 amongst catchers from 2022 up until this point in terms of being efficient in throwing runners out. We know he has a cannon behind the plate, right? He can throw runners out from his knees. That's never been the issue with Gary Sanchez. The issue with Gary Sanchez has been his ability to block balls, his ability to stay in front of balls, and his effort behind the plate. Really, that's really why he's been bouncing around and nobody has really believed in him as a catcher. So again, I guess a risky move. Maybe they want to try to mitigate the run game by relying on Gary Sanchez's arm strength. But again, if you get a ball in the dirt, I think it has to be automatically just try to swipe the bag. Yeah. I really do think so. On any 50-50 ball, this is not a time to play conservative, in my opinion. Go out there and put the pressure on them. This conservative crap, like, it's got you nowhere. Go out there, be the aggressors, and swipe the extra bag. That's what I say. And in terms of the question here that we got, first of all, I see Darren with the super chat here. Appreciate you, Darren, as always, member of the channel. If Mets offense can put pressure and score every time the Brewers score or keep on tacking runs, it takes pressure off the Mets pitchers, Darren says. That's absolutely correct. That's something that we've always talked about, right? And Darren knows this as well as anybody because he's always in our streams, and we definitely appreciate that. That's something that Rob and I talk about all the time, is getting a lead for your pitcher, because it makes them a little bit more relaxed. It allows them to maybe make a mistake or two where they feel like they can make a mistake or two. And if you do make a mistake or two, if you're confident behind those pitches, it's probably not going to burn you, right? But when you start second guessing yourself, when you start, feeling that pressure and anxiety up there in a close ball game because your team can't score you any damn runs, that's when you're afraid of making mistakes, which is going to, lead you to making more mistakes. And then bad things are just going to happen. So I think the Mets offense did a great job yesterday in the first 2 innings of getting Sean Manaea the lead. They just completely ignored the rest of the game. They said, okay, it's my day off now after they got 3 runs. That's not how it's supposed to go. This is playoff baseball. If you think 3 runs is going to get you a win in playoff baseball, you got another thing coming to you, just like the Mets did last night. Play a damn complete game. So I appreciate you, Darren. Absolutely. Thank you for the super chat. And also the sort of question here that Carlos Ramos brought up is that, are we surprised that, Pete Alonso wasn't moved down in this order? And I know you said you were surprised earlier, Rob. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. I said in the post game yesterday. What do you expect, and what do you think Carlos Mendoza is going to do in an elimination game, right? And as bad as he's been, he's going to go and drop his star player, the middle of the order lineup, a guy in the lineup, to the 7-8 spot. Like that. No. There's no chance he's going to do that. There's absolutely no chance he's going to do that. And I saw a couple of people, and I'm not saying that Carlos was expecting this, but I'm just answering his question. A couple of people on my X timeline as well, like I was going back and forth with, I was just like, what do you expect Mendoza to do? Is that really, first of all, going to make a big of a difference, like a huge difference? Because the game is going to find him. Just like the game finds you on defense, the key situations and the key spots are going to find you in the lineup. And guess what? With his approach, as bad as it is, it doesn't matter if he's hitting 5. It doesn't matter if he's hitting 4. He can hit 9. If he's continuing that same approach, he's not going to hit anything. So, again, I'm not surprised. I don't fault Mendoza for it either, because I just think the optics of it, look bad. And I get that you shouldn't care about the optics because this is the biggest point of the season and it's team before me. But again, I'm not surprised at all, and I wouldn't expect Mendoza to do any differently than he did in terms of putting him back in the middle of the order.
Yeah, and you're right about, look, the baseball gods find you regardless of the situation, especially when you're struggling. It seems like the big spot in the lineup always finds you. The runners on base always find you. Defensively, if you never played a position before, like if you got moved to third for whatever reason, or if you're a second baseman, you never played third, the ball finds you. And it's just the way the baseball gods work, and it's crazy. And, Chris is saying, Ken is saying, yeah, it doesn't need to find him in the 4 hole. But Ken, I'm glad you brought up Beta, because you got on me about Beta batting 9th in the Brave game. And what happened? The runners were on base both times he came up. So, you just contradicted yourself, right? You contradicted yourself this time. The balls, you bat Alonso 7th. The runners are going to be on base for him at that point, because the baseball gods suck in that way. And you know what? It'll probably find him in any situation. And that's the issue. That's why, and you're right, Chris, it is optics, because I probably would have felt a lot better if Alonso was batting 6th today instead of 5th, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. And he's obviously right in the middle of that cleanup spot. So somebody else has got to do it, because again, I don't trust Alonso doing it at all. And, I hope somebody comes to it. And, it's tough. Talking about, I want to just for a few minutes, I know we got like a minute left here. Lindor, right? He hasn't done, he has a sac fly. I think he has 1 hit in this series. I think Lindor is going to have a big game today. Huge game today. Again, this is the one guy who seems to put the team on his back big time. Nimmo has done it big. Vientos has done it big, but Lindor has carried this team. We all know that. He's been the guy. Games like this, I put the spotlight on Lindor here. I think he's going to show up. Now, does that mean the Mets are going to win? Of course not. But I think he's going to have a big game here because I think even the Mets players know that the power is not coming from Alonso. Somebody else is going to do it. And who else better than the three guys at the top of the order, right? Lindor, Vientos, and Nimmo are basically the only guys that have the best power in this lineup that we're seeing right now, that have shown it at least recently over the last couple of weeks. So good news is that we do have a big game guy that has come through many times this year, and that's the guy at the top of the order. Vientos has been very good in this postseason with his good at bats. He's got to continue that. Let's see if Nimmo, who basically just likes to hit home runs now, which is interesting. I love him to get on base more, but we need a couple of knocks over this wall, to be quite honest with you. I want to see this from this lineup today. Not overdo it because they didn't do it in game one. They scored 8 runs. But I don't know if they can string 4 or 5 hits together against Tobias Myers. That's not going to be that's going to be hard to do. And that's why hitting the ball over the wall against Myers is probably going to be key. And can they do it? We'll see. But guys, game 3 is about 35 minutes away. So take a deep breath, eat something, probably have a beer waiting for you, just in case. The way this team has we had to deal with everything throughout the season. Quintana on the mound, Myers on the mound. The Mets lineup is the Mets lineup. The Brewers lineup is the Brewers lineup. Chris, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I do have to dash out of here. I'm going to try to attend a little bit of a watch party, but we do have you guys covered for the post-game show. We will be live on the channel for the post-game show. So again, win or loss, make sure you tune in. I agree with Daniel here. The Mets don't win today. I'm sorry to say. The key point that I'm going to look at, obviously there's a culmination of a lot of things, but the Mets were so close to getting by the Brewers with only 6 outs left to get, and they didn't get it done. I don't want to be talking about that in the post game. Go out there, big time performance for a big time team. Get it done. You got to believe. Change the narrative. Let's go Mets. Nothing else to say. Like everything is out of our control. Everything is out of anybody's control once they step into those lines. They got to get it done. Got to believe in the guys. They got here to this point. What's another game? Let's do it.
As you always say, Chris, just win, baby. That's all they got to do tonight. Just win, and hopefully we'll be talking about a post-game W and an advance to the NLDS. With that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to the Amazing Mets pregame show. We will see you later tonight, win or lose on the post-game show. Let's go Mets, guys, and we'll see you later tonight. Let's get that W, guys.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife.